If you listen to this study on Luke today, you may think that I may have my calendar messed up and that I think it's Christmas. No, I know it's not Christmas. But we have come to Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7, and it is the story of Christmas. I've actually already recorded this study, and it was too long to post, so I'm going to have to break it into two postings. So I'm going to entitle today Luke 2, 1 through 7a, and I would suggest that you go ahead and listen to Luke 2, 1 through 7b, because there's not really a good stopping point. But let's begin. How much do you really know about Christmas? I mean, how much do you know about the historical part of Christmas? Nobody knows for sure exactly when Jesus was born. We're pretty confident about the year Jesus was born in, but we're not very confident about the date of his birth. There are some historical references that can be found right here in the book of Luke and other Gospels to help us at least identify the year Jesus was born in. We also know that when Jesus was born, Augustus was the Caesar of the Roman Empire. We also know that during the birth of Jesus, that Augustus decided to take a census of all of his people. It is also known through Luke that Quirinius was the one in authority in Syria during the time of the birth of Jesus. Matthew also lets us in on the fact that the ruler in Palestine was Herod the Great. When you put all of these facts that we know for sure that are true together, it becomes pretty obvious that Jesus was either born in 5 BC or 4 BC. It's almost hilarious to say that Jesus was born BC or before Christ. But when the makers of the calendar decided to divide human history with the birth of Christ, as they said it, they just missed it by a couple of years. We're not so sure about the exact date. We observe Christmas on December the 25th. J.W. Shepherd, in his book, says actually the 25th day of December was the date of a Roman pagan festival called Saturnalia. On this occasion of Saturnalia, they took a holiday. They didn't engage in war. Criminals weren't executed, and friends gave gifts to each other. So for a while, slaves even enjoyed their freedom on this day of Saturnalia. So Christians who belonged to an oppressed class and a lowly class seized on this day, this holy festival, this Saturnalius, to celebrate in a holy festival the goodwill and the birth of Jesus Christ. Custom is taking care of the rest, and Christianity continues to hold to the day of Christmas to celebrate the birth of Christ. It's probably true that Jesus was not actually born in December. I don't want to burst your bubble. D.L. Lowry points out that the fact that the flocks and the shepherds were out roaming in their field probably indicates an earlier and a warmer climate and earlier time of the year. Obviously, the exact date that Jesus was born is not that important, or else God would have caused that date to be preserved. The primary thing to be celebrated is not the date that Jesus was born, but the event and the fact that Jesus was born. That's what needs to be celebrated with worship and joy. There is a lot to learn about the manner of the birth of Christ. It's not as important to know why, when it took place, as it is to know why it took place, how it took place, and what took place. In this study of Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7, I want to talk about what Christmas tells us. There are some revelations of Christmas found in Luke 2, 1 through 7. And so I want us to read together this passage of Scripture that is really famous for Christmas. And I'm going to share that with you today, and we will read it together. And then in our next session, we will study it and break it down a little bit and try to learn what God has to say for us in Luke 2, 1 through 7. This is an awesome verse. Many kids memorize and learn this passage growing up, and we use it in most of our Christmas productions. Let me read it to you. Luke 2, 1 through 7 says, "In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria." See the things we've already learned? Caesar Augustus was the emperor. Quirinius was governor of Syria. And then verse 3 says everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them. I'm going to stop here, and then in Luke 2, 1 through 7b, we'll learn the revelations of Christmas.